Hi ladies, this video is all about what it means when you bleed with the new moon. A lot of the information I'm going to provide you with have been inspired by the amazing Lisa Lister, author of Code Red. I can't recommend that book enough for anyone wanting to understand their periods more and understand the moon cycles as well. So when we have a new moon, this is when the moon is directly between the earth and the sun and therefore it's hidden. So unlike a full moon, you can't actually see the new moon. This can feel quite intense and you may feel the need to reschedule dates or plans in favour of time alone, meditation and silence. The dark moon, also referred to as the new moon, can also cause your feelings to feel like you're overly feely. So you might notice that you binge on food, TV, and social media to try to numb out. When the moon turns new, however, set your intentions for the cycle ahead. Setting your intentions with this part of the moon cycle will be most powerful and most effective. In a separate video, I will talk more about setting your intentions. But as a general rule, I always say, do what works for you. But I always make sure when I do my intentions, I'm setting them for my highest good and the highest good of anyone else involved. So, with the wise women before us, we were in total sync with the moon. They knew that our menstrual cycle is highly affected by the moon's movement. Their blood and hormonal cycle followed the moon's flow, and as the cycle waxed from new moon to full moon, estrogen levels increased, leading to supercharged fertility when the moon was at her fullest, roundest, and most abundant. From full moon to new moon, the waning half of the cycle, progesterone dominated and led to the release of blood at the dark moon. Today, most of us are totally out of sync with the moon's cycles. We get so busy in our daily modern lives that for the most part we ignore the cycles and the changes of Mother Earth and Mother Nature. The seasons, the moon, the flow of the sea, all of which are indicative as to how we could be living. And it is really difficult in this modern society and how we've been brought up and the system we've been brought up in. And it is almost like, in a way, a sense of reteaching ourselves and reconnecting back to earth and back to nature. Our menstrual cycle is often medicated with synthetic hormones and not allowed to flow naturally from our bodies. Because of use of things like the tampons, we treat any resulting pain and symptoms with Western medicine, which means we're potentially silencing the messages that Mama Nature and our body and our cycle can give us each month. When we do that, well, we're definitely going to feel it. We get stressed out, exhausted, depleted, and depressed. We silence the deep, ancient feminine wisdom that's available to us through the cycles of the seasons. The moon phases our body and our menstrual cycle by using caffeine, drugs, TV, and social media to create potentially destructive cycles of self-medication. These cycles keep us locked in the story that being a woman is hard freaking work, which may I add, it is, and that it has to be painful, and any alternative that involves resting or not striving to achieve makes us weak. Well, I can tell you now, we are certainly not weak, but we shouldn't feel bad for having to have that time to rest and go within. Now, in her book, Lisa does share that she's not, putting this out there to be judgy or make anyone feel bad, but we're all doing the best that we can with the knowledge we have. And I feel like that statement is really important because we're only as good as what we know in that respect. So what we've learned, what we've been grown up around, how we've been taught things, we can only make the best of what we have with the way we've been taught. So part of, I find, like reconnecting back with Mother Earth is relearning what they would have done, like in the wise women that were before us. So I'm also not sharing any of this to guilt anyone who doesn't bleed in sync with the moon. In fact, one of the questions that I get asked a lot and by people is, how do I sync my cycle with the moon? By which they usually mean, how can I, like the wise women that were before, ovulate with the full moon and bleed with the dark moon? While this is possible, please know it's not necessary. A lot can affect your cycles, from the blue light from all these electrical devices to street lights to the amount of contraception in our water system. So it's rare that any of us actually bleed in sync with the moon anymore. But despite what you might have been told, you really don't need to sync your cycle with the moon, because guess what? It already is. Whichever moon phase you bleed in, and you'll notice that this will change depending on what's being called up within you and through you to respond to and work with during the years that you bleed. So trust in the universe that you will always be synced with what cycle you need to be synced with. It holds its own power and magic for what you need to receive right now. So when you bleed at this particular time of a new moon, you are being called inwards to nourish yourself fully. And when I say nourish yourself, it's not just a physical thing, i.e. like what you consume through your diet. I'm talking nourishing yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. There's a lot there to comprehend, but it is always, what you need on a physical, mental, and an emotional and spiritual level. Your dream time will always be extra potent, so make sure you make lots of notes. I personally have like a dream journal that I literally leave on the pillow next to me. So as soon as I wake up, I literally write down all that I can remember, any of my dreams, because they'll always have relevance to what's going on in our everyday lives and in the future to come. You also have to remember as well, it sounds crazy, but if you are more spiritual, you will understand this. But when you bleed, you literally have got one foot in this world and one in the spiritual world. So you have a cosmic womb, basically. So you are really powerful and you have access to all that's been and all that's to come. It is pretty wild. It is a good time for you to be still and to be in silence and let your wisest self be your guide, so that you can set clear intentions for the cycle ahead. So if you are more drawn to things like meditation, connecting with your spirit guides, your spirit team, your ancestors, for that guidance that you may be needing, getting more into sync with like your intuition. And when we mention about menstruation itself, it is our winter. So just like you do in winter time, you cozy up by the fire, the idea of partying, it does not sound like fun. At menstruation, we have the same impulse to retreat, to be quieter and still. And being aware that menstruation is a time for retreat makes a huge difference. So when you allow yourself to not feel guilty and you allow yourself to fully have that time to just retreat, it's all about rest, repair, and renewal. And if we do this at menstruation, we can enter into the new cycle refreshed and reborn. And I think it's really essential that as women, we stop feeling guilty for that and we give ourselves the time and the rest that our bodies need. So I hope this video has given you some information and I hope it finds you well. And I thank you so much for listening. Take care, guys.